For Stone Age humans, heavy rain was not simply weather. It was a force that reshaped their entire existence. Rain could erase familiar paths, drown camps, scatter animals, rot food, and kill without warning. Floods did not announce themselves politely. They arrived with violence, turning rivers into roaring monsters and low ground into death traps. In a world without permanent homes, stored grain, metal tools, or written knowledge, surviving such conditions required something more powerful than strength: understanding. Stone Age humans lived at the edge of survival, and rain pushed that edge closer. Every generation learned, through loss and experience, how water behaved and how humans must behave around it. Those lessons were carved not into books, but into memory, habit, and instinct. Long before the first drops fell, Stone Age humans sensed change. Their survival depended on paying attention to subtle signs modern humans often ignore. The air grew heavier, smells shifted, winds changed direction, and clouds thickened low on the horizon. These were not vague feelings. They were patterns recognized through repeated exposure. Animals were the most trusted warning system. When herds began moving uphill, when small creatures vanished into burrows, or when birds altered their flight paths, humans noticed. These changes often occurred days before major rain. Elders remembered previous disasters and interpreted these signs with authority. Ignoring them could mean death. Rain seasons became expected events. Humans learned that floods were not random, they followed cycles. Certain times of year demanded caution, preparation, and restraint. This seasonal awareness marked a crucial step in human cognitive development: anticipation. Where a group slept was often the difference between life and death. Early humans learned, painfully, that flat land near water was dangerous. Rivers that appeared calm could rise rapidly after distant rainfall, swallowing entire camps in darkness. Over generations, humans developed rules about safe ground. Camps were placed on elevated terraces near rivers, never directly on floodplains. These spots allowed access to water while remaining above sudden surges. Rocky ground was favoured because it drained quickly and did not turn into suffocating mud. Memory played a crucial role. Places where people had drowned or lost children were remembered for generations. These locations were avoided, and stories about them were told repeatedly, embedding danger into cultural memory. Caves are often imagined as primitive homes, but Stone Age humans were selective. Many caves were deadly during floods, filling with water or trapping smoke. Through experience, humans learned to choose caves with high entrances, outward slopes, and good airflow. Shallow caves and rock overhangs were ideal. They offered protection from rain while allowing fire smoke to escape. Water flowed past rather than into them. During prolonged storms, these spaces became survival centers, places where fire, food, tools, and people could remain dry. Caves also provided psychological relief. The sound of rain pounding stone was terrifying, but inside a cave, humans felt protected. This sense of safety mattered, especially for children. When caves were unavailable, humans built shelters designed specifically for rain. Flat roofs were avoided entirely. Early humans learned quickly that water pooled, added weight, and collapsed structures. Shelters were built with angled frames made from branches leaned together. These frames were covered in layers: leaves, grass, bark, and animal hides. Each layer served a purpose. Leaves deflected rain, bark slowed water flow, and hides repelled moisture. Shelters were small by design. Smaller spaces were easier to warm, easier to repair, and less exposed to wind. Constant maintenance was required. During storms, adults reinforced structures repeatedly, tightening coverings and redirecting runoff away from sleeping areas. Fire was the center of survival, and rain threatened it constantly. Losing fire during prolonged rain could mean hypothermia, spoiled food, and vulnerability to predators. Stone Age humans developed strategies to protect fire. Fires were built near cave walls or under overhangs. Dry wood was collected in advance and stored in protected areas. Some groups carried embers wrapped in bark or fungus, ensuring fire could be reborn even after days of rain. Fire was more than warmth. It dried clothing, preserved food, hardened wooden tools, and provided light during endless dark storms. Protecting fire was often the group's highest priority. Floods transformed landscapes rapidly. Rivers expanded into forests. Valleys turned into deadly channels. Paths vanished. Stone Age humans learned that floodwater was deceptive. What appeared shallow could pull a person under instantly. Crossing flooded rivers killed many who tried. Survivors learned patience. When water rose, movement stopped. Groups retreated uphill and waited. Waiting meant hunger, discomfort, and fear, but it saved lives. This restraint was not instinctive, it was learned through loss. Food was hardest to secure during heavy rain. Hunting became dangerous as animals fled or scattered. Wet conditions spoiled meat rapidly. Stone Age humans adapted by relying on preservation methods. Smoking meat over low fires dried it and slowed decay. This allowed food to last days or weeks, even in damp conditions. Plant foods were gathered carefully and stored in woven baskets hung above ground or placed on rock ledges. During floods, diets often became limited. Eating less and conserving energy became essential survival strategies. Hunger was accepted as temporary. Panic was avoided. Groups that rationed survived longer than those who consumed everything quickly. Rain brought cold, and cold killed silently. Stone Age clothing was not decoration, it was survival equipment. Animal hides were scraped, softened, and treated with fat to repel water. These hides shed rain and retained heat even when damp. Cloaks, wraps, and hoods protected vital areas of the body. Children and elders were prioritized. Wet clothing was dried whenever possible, as prolonged dampness weakened the body and caused illness. Travel during heavy rain was dangerous. Valleys filled with water, and open ground turned into thick mud. Humans learned to travel along ridges, rocky ground, and forest edges where drainage was better. These routes were longer, but safer. Migration paths avoided known flood zones. Knowledge of these routes was passed orally. Losing this knowledge often meant death. Floods displaced animals. Carnivores driven from low ground sought the same elevated areas as humans. Encounters increased. Hungry predators became bolder. Humans responded by staying grouped, keeping fires burning, and posting night watches. Firelight and smoke deterred many animals even during storms. Noise also played a role. Human voices, crackling fire, and movement discouraged predators from approaching too closely. Prolonged rain weakened bodies. Wet skin led to sores and infections. Cold lowered resistance to illness. Stone Age humans responded by reducing unnecessary movement. Conflict was avoided. Rest became a survival strategy. Energy conservation mattered more than productivity. Wounds were treated carefully. Even small injuries could become fatal in damp conditions. Avoiding harm became as important as hunting. No individual survived floods alone. Survival depended on cooperation. Tasks multiplied during rain. Shelters needed repair. Fire needed protection. Food needed preservation. Children needed supervision. Labour divided naturally. Elders guided decisions. Adults performed heavy labour. Women managed food, clothing, children, and fire. Children assisted where safe. This cooperation was not optional. Groups that failed to work together did not survive. Women were central to flood survival. They preserved food, repaired clothing, cared for the sick, maintained shelters, protected fire, and calmed children during terrifying storms. Their work was constant, repetitive, and essential. Survival during floods depended more on this sustained labour than on dramatic acts of hunting or combat. Children learned quickly during flood seasons. They learned when to stay still, when to move, and when to obey instantly. Older children assisted with tasks, learning survival skills through direct experience. These lessons were deeply ingrained because mistakes were immediately dangerous. When floods receded, the world was unfamiliar. Rivers changed course, trees fell, landmarks vanished. Humans explored cautiously. Water sources were tested carefully, as floodwater often carried decay. Slowly, life resumed. Floods also created opportunity. Fish trapped in pools were easily caught. Floodplains became fertile gathering grounds. Humans learned that survival did not end with endurance, it continued with adaptation. Floods shaped belief systems. Water was seen as powerful, dangerous, and deserving respect. Stories of great floods preserved survival knowledge. These stories warned of danger and taught restraint. Myth and memory blended, serving survival rather than entertainment. Over thousands of years, floods shaped human intelligence. They forced planning, cooperation, memory, and patience. Groups that failed to learn vanished. Those who adapted survived and passed on knowledge. Floods were ruthless teachers. Stone Age humans did not conquer rain and floods. They endured them. They adapted. They respected water's power. That endurance shaped humanity itself.